Shalom. First and foremost, I want to give all of the praises and the glory to the Most High and His Son, Yahweh Bashmi Al-Shai Bashim Rakak Wadash. Double honors to the apostles of the great millstone that taught me this truth, and as well as the bishops on down, Yahweh Bashmi Al-Shai Brakatham, to the elect overall that are in this word, which is 144,000, and including the 1/3 that do follow of the things that we say as we preach. And what I want to do is I want to chime in on this as well, because this guy Douglas, his last name is, he mentions that America is going to lose its superpower, and I just want to respond to what he was saying and go into some stuff that I have on deck. And without further ado, let's play this video.
Pointed out, I think as we were talking earlier, 20% of the transactions that Russia conducts are in dollars. Well, Russia is part of BRICS. Russia's about to become president of BRICS next year. And these are the states that are trying to distance themselves from our financial system. Most of them want to disengage. They're moving towards gold-backed currency, something we cannot do without ultimately confronting default almost immediately.
Right.
And
the more nations disengage with America financially, with their currency is concerned, is the more the dollar becomes weakened. And when you have a weakened dollar or any currency, every store that you go to, you find out that basic food that you usually get is high in price. Why is that? Because the dollar has been the power of the dollar has been deducted. So when it comes to milk, eggs, these kind of basic foods that you need is high in price, pretty much. Your nuts, raisins, and stuff of that nature. And even, basic tools that you need. Everything has just gone up in price. Why is that? Because the current state of the dollar isn't good anymore. And the reason for that is simply because it's to do with nations backing out of the dollar, and many other reasons why that is the case. All right. So as he mentioned that Russia is going to be the president of the BRICS nation, and what's going to happen is we already know, because the world already despises America already because of the policies it's passed, and what it's been doing all around the world in terms of being the world's bully, so to speak. And now America is looking like the bad guy that it always was, but portraying themselves, as the good guys. Well, things have taken a turn, and that's not the case any longer. All right, because we're in a different time where the breaking down of this system is definitely now in full effect now, as he's going to explain even furthermore. Without further ado,
it's not something that Putin did to us. We've done that to ourselves. But the point is, the whole world is first of all appalled at the United States. We're seen as the international bully who tries to push people into policies and actions they would otherwise never take. And we rely on two things. We rely on the financial system to bully them, and the SWIFT operation, and we rely on military power.
And that can't be used to bully the nations anymore, because just as he's mentioned, that everyone's turning to BRICS now. So now they have their own currency to rely on. So if America decides to place sanctions on these nations, it's not going to work. And the military is not going to work either, because for one, America, the military of America isn't so great. You have, people that shouldn't be in the military that are in the military. And if you know what I'm saying, right? And just overall, the power isn't so much of a power anymore. And all you got to do is go on YouTube and check out the training methods that the Russians got going on. They've always had a better training method than the American training methods. Okay. And as well as he's going to mention that even the economy is booming rather than America itself. So America is on the low. America and the Western power construct is breaking down from a moral standpoint, from a spiritual standpoint, and as well as this breaking down from a financial standpoint and a military standpoint, which is the most important parts of a society. All right. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna get out of here, and we're gonna get to some stuff that I have on deck that I want to get into, and I want to read this article as well, even in regards to Europe being vulnerable. So this reads: Europe is more vulnerable than ever before, with weapons and ammo supplies dwindling. So this reads: as the Russian military pillages through Ukraine, claiming territory and draining resources along the way, many European countries now face the stark reality that could be next. Not only has mass immigration strained the resources, but their military manufacturing bases are also no longer able to replenish critical defense weapons and ammunition. The EU is depleting military resources in Ukraine and doesn't have the manufacturing capacity to keep up with Russia. In trying to maintain the Ukrainian state, the EU has already used up what little resources they did have, and the EU has provided over 29 billion in military assistance to Ukraine, ranging from ammunition to air defense systems, Leopard tanks, and fighter jets. And the EU has already pledged 1 million rounds of artillery ammunition by early 2024. And have trained 40,000 Ukrainians, military personnel, to demine territories that are now occupied by Russian armed forces. But all of these efforts are coming up short. The U.S. is draining resources fast, too. With over 75 billion now invested in Ukraine, the U.S. plans to print the dollar into oblivion. Oh boy. Destroying the world reserve currency and depleting its military resources along the way. NATO countries are outgunned, losing the war in Ukraine and unable to defend their own borders. As Europe and the West continues to falter in Ukraine, a new report finds that most European countries have depleted militaries with ammunition supplies so low they wouldn't be able to last more than 2 days in an all-out confrontation with Russia. Wow. The British Army only has about 150 tanks ready to deployment and about 1 dozen long-range artillery pieces that are operable when the British military was conscripted to assist Ukraine last year, and they considered sourcing rockets launches from their own museums. So, even from the place of Europe, it's just not looking good at all when it concerns the military. And the reason why this is now the case, because the Western military power has extended itself to them. We're talking about even including the overexpenditure of the military power itself. And this is something that Rome has done. Rome did the same thing. This is one of the reasons why the ancient Roman Empire fell apart, because of this, which is when you go to the history.com, which I'm in right now, this is the 4th reason, which really in this article, I forgot to mention, it mentions 8 reasons why the Roman system fell. And the 4th reason, as they have here, is what? Overexpansion and military overspending. At its height, the Roman Empire stretched from the Atlantic Ocean all the way to the Euphrates River in the east. But its grandeur may have also been its downfall. With such a vast territory to govern, the empire faced an administrative and logistical nightmare. Even when their excellent road systems, the Romans were unable to communicate quickly or effectively enough to manage their holdings. Rome struggled to marshal enough troops and resources to defend its frontiers from local rebellions and outside attacks. And by the 2nd century, the Emperor Hadrian was forced to build his famous wall in Britain just to keep the enemy at bay, as more and more funds were funneled into the military upkeep of the empire. Technological advancements slowed the Rome civil infrastructure fell into despair. So they said by 416 AD, That's when it fell. And then you had the rising up of the east part of Rome, which Jake had in their hands at the time. And that part of Rome became more prominent. All right. So that's one of the reasons, the fourth reasons that I'm reading in this over here, which shows as to why they fell. Because we're talking about an empire that relied on the sword. Remember, going back to the book of Genesis 27, right? That was the blessing which was given unto Esau from his father Isaac. So this is the thing that Esau has trusted upon, and the very thing that he has trusted upon is going to lead to his own destruction. As what was told to Peter, he that liveth by the sword shall die by the sword. So Esau's going to go down with the sword. Okay. But there's many more other things which is leading them to go down as a whole. As I've mentioned earlier before, we're in a time of the breaking down of this system. Once upon a time past, we was in a time of the beginning of this system, and it was building up. But now we're in a time of it falling apart, because another society is getting ready to erupt, and that's going to be the society of the saints, which is the kingdom of heaven. Okay, it ain't going to be the Chinese, it ain't going to be the Russians, it ain't going to be anybody else besides the saints that's going to be the next ones to rule. All right. And when I was thinking about and reading this, I thought about the scripture where it reads, he exerciseth all of the power of the first beast. Because what was the power of the first part of Rome? The military. Okay. But what they're doing is they're spending too much, and they're spreading their military too thin. And this is why they don't have enough military power like they used to confront other enemies geopolitically anymore. Okay. Because the ultimate enemy they need to be focusing on is Russia, but they don't even have enough power to confront Russia and as well as China combined together. So this society, this Western power ship is pretty much destined to fall apart. And I'm talking from a warlike stance. Okay, they're going to fall miserably. All right. And as prophecy put it in the Bible, is that America is going to be destroyed the way it's going to be destroyed, nuked. And I want to read this as well in regards to Saul and Jonathan, which was said by Samuel from verse, I think from verse 25 to verse 27. We're going to read on. How are the mighty fallen in the midst of the battle? O Jonathan, thou wast slain in thine high places. I am distressed for thee, my brother Jonathan. Very pleasant hast thou been unto me. Thy love to me was wonderful, passing the love of women. And how are the mighty fallen and the weapons of war perished? Exactly. Okay. So that's where the phrase comes from. How are the mighty fallen? You hear certain people say that sometimes. And that's why I wanted to read this, because it goes right along with the topic that I'm getting into. So, as time has passed, you've had mighty nations, but nations were not mighty enough to see their downfall. Okay, see, the Israelites, on the other hand, when the Lord changes us, we're going to be the only nation to demonstrate that we're not going to fall at all. We're not going to have any reason to fall. Okay. But when it concerns the sons of men, they're going to fall because they're not perfect. The sons of men, because they're fleshly of a nation or nations, they're prone to making the wrong decisions. All right. So the way that the Lord is going to make us, to not make the wrong decisions. We're going to always make the right decisions. And that's what's going to always keep us into power. All right. Because we're going to be built right to do right. Moving forward. So now let's even read this. Habakkuk chapter 2, verse 5. Ye also, because he transgresseth by wine. In other words, by his philosophy, his way of democracy, which is spread around the world. And we already know, what encompasses that. And he is a proud man, neither keepeth at home, who enlargeth his desire as hell, and is as deaf, and cannot be satisfied, but gathered unto him all people. And the point is that he is a proud man, neither keep him at home. What makes this man proud? Because he has the sword with him. He trusts in the sword that he was blessed with. Okay? That's why these devils are proud. But again, with that sword, it's going to lead to their own destruction, man. You know? And speaking about how many military bases there are in America, I mean, as they have it over here in the Al Jazeera News, just, a news article I found, which, gave me the answer as to how many. So anyway, this reads, infographic U.S. military presence around the world. The U.S. controls about 750 bases in at least 80 countries worldwide and spends more on its military than the next 10 countries combined. Just like what ancient Rome did. Ancient Rome did the same thing. What did they do? They overspended on their military, which was one of the reasons why the ancient Roman system fell. All right? Because that was really the power that the empire could trust upon. Going back to the scripture, he exerciseth the power of the first beast. Which the power of the first beast, which is the ancient Roman Empire, as we are, we're in the resurrection of Rome again, is doing the same thing, relying on its military power. And that's why most of the taxpayers' money, by the abundance, is spent towards the military. So let's go back and read this. Verse 6, shall not all these take up a parable against them, and a taunting proverb against them, and say, woe unto him that increased that which is not his. How long? And to him that laid of himself with thick clay. And the word thick clay is a batya, which means debt. And America is approaching $34 trillion in debt, if I'm correct. All right, that's what the thick clay is talking about. It's referring to the great amount of debt that they have. So now let's read a little bit about how much is spent on the military, that America spends on the military right here from 1960 to 2023. So from 2017, we have here U.S. military spending defense budget for 2018 was almost $700 billion, a 5.53% increase from 2017. From 2019 was $734.34 billion, a 7.6% increase from 2018. And as you can see, it's going up. And the most they've spent in 2020 was $800 billion, 670 million some dollars on the military. All right. And the military equipment that they have ain't cheap. To maintain those air jet fighters, to maintain the aircraft carriers, again, is it's not a few millions of dollars. I mean, we're talking about in the billions. All right, to create this stuff, and as well as to keep this stuff active, you gotta have an abundance amount of dollars to spend on this military equipment. All right. So instead of actually getting the country back together, they're using the money that they get from the banks, or however they get it, whether they print more money, and that money is geared directly towards the military. And the ultimate reason why that's the case, because we're in a third world, which is going to happen physically with the nukes flying from one place to another place. That's the ultimate reason why that's the case. But originally, it goes back to the blessing that Isaac blessed Esau. All right, so now we're going to go and read this Isaiah 19 and 14, which reads, the Lord hath mingled a perverse spirit in the midst thereof, and they have caused Egypt to err in every work thereof, and as a drunken man staggereth in his vomit. Exactly. So that's the reason why, as the ancient Romans did, they made a lot of mistakes by making the wrong choices, by going along with the wrong choices, and it led to their fall. So the same thing is happening in this modern Rome. These politicians, or let me just put it, basically the powers that be of the West are constantly making the wrong choices that looks like it's the right choices to make, and pretty much it's just destroying the world over and over. And I wouldn't even go as far as saying that they wanted to. I'm not gonna go as far as saying, I gotta correct myself a little bit, because the powers that be, we know that it's a. And just to correct myself as well, I just wanted to say this as well, and just to correct myself, because obviously there's an agenda for, powers that are above the banks, especially want to destroy the world as it is. Okay, so they're doing all of this by purpose, but regardless whether they're doing it by purpose or not, this is the Lord's doing. This is all that the Lord's doing, as it is written, that promotion cometh not from the east nor from the south, but promotion coming from the Lord. So the Lord is demoting these people from out of their position, little by little. The Lord is going to pretty much demote these damn devils from where they lay, and guess who's going to be in their step afterwards? The saints are going to be, and this is all going to happen. Actually, it's already in the happening. Jig is coming into power. Okay, so let's also get this over here in the book of Daniel 4, in verse 17. Daniel 4 and 17. And this is a chapter in the book of Daniel which elaborates on Nebuchadnezzar, how he spoke proudly of his kingdom, and then eventually the Lord basically bugged him out. Verse 17. This matter is by the decree of the watchers and the demand by the word of the holy ones, to the intent that the living may know that the Most High ruleth in the kingdom of men, and give it to whomsoever he will, and set up over it the basis of men. Exactly. So that's just the thing. So that's why the Lord put in a perverse spirit in Egypt. Why do I read this? To associate this with America, because America is also Egypt in the reincarnation. What made Egypt great was the slave labor that the Israelites was putting in. And as well as America does practice Egyptology too. All right. Like in the back of a dollar. Like when you look at the back of a dollar bill, you're going to see what? Those pyramids. And then as well as you have around America, you have what you call obelisks, which goes back to ancient Egypt. Okay. So America is taking on here and there Egypt, some kind of Egyptology. So that's all I have to say right there. Just to make mention of a few things in regards to that. So yeah, I think I've made my point on this. Yeah, I've made my point on this. So now what I want to do is I want to go back to that video and see what else we can extract out of this.
Well, our military power has taken a beating in Ukraine. He says not a single American troop or soldier has been killed or wounded over there. Well, we're not so sure. We've had a lot of people on the ground over there that may not have been in U.S. uniform, and no one is reporting what's happened to them. A lot of British and American officers and soldiers have been wounded or killed as advisors or as supporters, as contractors. But, that doesn't matter. That's, of peripheral importance to Lindsey Graham. The point is, we haven't committed the U.S. Army to Ukraine, and thank God. Because if we had sent it into Ukraine, I don't think it could have sustained itself logistically for more than 100 kilometers. And then I think it would have been beaten severely, because warfare has changed. Russia is now on the leading edge of this new phase in the development of warfare in international relations. We don't get it. We don't want to recognize.
So why is Russia now leading the way when it comes to warfare? and as well as internationally, as he said, because again, we're in a time of the end of the Western triumph, and Russia's going to be the one to bring this system to its knees, or let's just say to its foot, down to the foot. And that's why I want to read this in the book of Revelations 13:1, and then we're going to go and read the book of Jeremiah. I think it's 50 in verse 23 to verse 26. So let's read this. Revelations 13 and verse 2 to be exact. So this reads, "And the beast which I saw was likened unto a leopard," which represents the Greeks, which was the first Edomitic rulership, and his feet was as the feet of a bear. So why does it mention that this same beast had the feet of a bear? Because it's going to be, the Russians is going to bring this Edomitic system down to his feet. And his mouth is as the mouth of a lion, which represents Great Britain. Great Britain is pretty much the power behind the Western world. So if Great Britain has something to say in regards to the monarch, especially when we're dealing with King Charles III, he gave an order a while back in regards to this climate change thing. Guess what? All of these politicians, and as well as all of these insiders that are involved in the world of businesses that they have to pretty much be active on that order. All right. So the power comes from Britain, and the dragon gave him his power and his seat and great authority. And the dragon just represents Rome. So I just wanted to read that. And now when I want to get the book of Jeremiah 50. And I believe it's in verse 23. And we're going to read all the way down to verse 26. So this is Jeremiah 50 and verse 23. "How is the hammer of the whole earth cut asunder and broken, and how is Babylon become a desolation among the nations? I have laid a snare for thee, and thou art also taken, O Babylon, and thou wast not aware. And thou art found and also caught, because thou hast striven against the Lord." Exactly. So how did the Edomites in America strive against the Lord? First of all, they strove against the people of the Lord. And as well as it reads in the book of Revelations that the blood of the saints was in that land. And what does it read in the book of Numbers? Well, let's get that. Numbers 30, I think it's Numbers 35, if I'm correct. Numbers 35 and 33. What does that say concerning the blood on the land, right? Yeah, Numbers 35, that's the Spirit of the Lord. 35 and verse 33, "So you shall not pollute the land wherein ye are, for blood is the fire of the land, and the land cannot be cleansed of the blood that is shed therein, but by the blood of him that is shed." And this is why this also reads in the book of Isaiah 14 as well. In the book of, in verse, I think it's in verse 7, if I'm correct. Let's go and see. No, it's not. It's a lot of good stuff in there in regards to this topic, but that's not really what I want. And that's why this reads over here, Isaiah 14 and 21, "Prepare slaughter for his children for the iniquity of their fathers, that they do not rise, nor possess a land, nor fill the face of the world with cities." I mean, all of those lynchings and as well as Jake being dealt with cruelly, as our ancestors were dealt with in hardcore slavery. All of that is going to be paid for. All right. And as well as the slaughtering of the Native American Indians as well. Gad especially, and as well as Reuben. All of that is going to have to be taken into account. And there's going to be a payback for all of that stuff. Okay. So slaughter will be prepared. And this is why in America, there's going to be martial law being declared on the streets. And a lot of them crackers whose forefathers go back to those forefathers that have troubled our people in the most cruelest fashion, as they did back in the 17 to the 1800s. and as well as even to the 1900s, guess what? There's going to be a slaughtering unto them as well. Okay. And also, let's include the ones of our people that don't want to repent. The Lord is going to use the same UN soldiers to, stamp on our people like Maya, those that don't want to repent. All right. That's in the book of Isaiah chapter 10. The Lord will send the Assyrians against them, against an hypocritical nation, which the modern Assyrians is going to be those devils that's going to storm against you, Jakes. This is all coming. All right. Which is a part of the downfall of this wicked world. So now, let me go back and read a scripture that I originally had in mind. So now let's go back and read the book of Jeremiah 50 again. Jeremiah 50. And we're going to go back to verse 23. Verse 25. The Lord hath opened his armory and have brought forth the weapons of his indignation. For this is the work of the Lord of the hosts in the land of the Chaldeans. Verse 26, come against her from the utmost border, and open her storehouses, and cast up her up as heaps, and destroy her utterly, and let nothing of her be left. So this goes into the book of, Revelations 17. These shall hate the whore, and shall burn her with fire. And as well as you're going to have those other nations that are going to fulfill the book of Isaiah 34. Okay. But primarily these nations that are going to come up against her is the nations surrounding Gog and Magog, which is in the book of Ezekiel 38. Slay all her bullocks and let them go down to the slaughter. And that's referring to the people. The people are going to be the bullocks that are going to be sacrificed. Let them go down to the slaughter, and woe unto them, for their day is come, and the time of their visitation, and the voice of them that flee and escape out of the land of Babylon, to declare in Zion the vengeance of the Lord our power, and the vengeance of his temple. So now let's get to the point. Right. Call together the archers against Babylon. In other words, those missiles, and all ye that bend the bow, camp against it round about, and let none thereof escape. Recompense her according to her work, according to all that she have done unto her. For she have been proud against the Lord, against the Holy One of Israel. So when it says they've been proud against the Lord, meaning they've been proud against our people. Okay? Because we represent the Lord. Whether we're righteous or whether we're wicked, as a nation, we're going to represent the Lord in the kingdom. So when they oppress our people, when they float themselves against our people, that's them floating themselves against the Lord. All right. And against the Holy One of Israel, which is the Messiah. And therefore shall her young men fall in the streets, and all her men of war shall be cut off in that day, save the Lord. And like I've mentioned earlier before, America got a really faulty military, man. Equipment that they got, the missiles are faulty. And as well as the military men that are in the military are not really on the ready to be fighting the wars. They're not ready for the battle. All right. And a lot of these guys is in the military. A lot of these dudes is fruitcakes. You know, I mean, you got gender benders in there. You got all kind of strange, deranged spirits that's in the military among these people. So they're not fit for the battle to win anything over nobody. So what I want to do is I want to go up a couple of verses, because I think I might have missed something. Because what I want to get into is the Northern Army. I want to read about that. Because the man mentioned about how Russia's become the head. Yeah, we can start right here in verse 40. Jeremiah 50 and verse 40. As the Most High overthrew Sodom and Gomorrah and the neighboring cities thereof, save the Lord, so shall no man abide there, and neither shall any son of man dwell therein. So that's what America's going to be. America's going to be a 5,000 square mile of desert. You're not going to know what state was next to another state, it's just going to be a desert for desert-like creatures. All you got to do is read the book of Isaiah 13, and you'll see that. Those of us that are, the ones of us that are well versed in the scriptures that are learning. All right. Behold, a people shall come from the north, and the great nation and many kings shall be raised up from the coasts of the earth, and they shall hold the bow and the lance, and they are cruel and will not show mercy, and their voices shall roar like the sea, and they shall ride upon horses, and every one that put in array like a man to the battle against thee, O daughter of Babylon. So all of these are of what's being said over here. These words is referring to the missiles that Jeremiah spoke about. Jeremiah saw it in the vision, how Babylon was going to be destroyed. And he saw bows, and he was basically referring it to the technology that they had at the time. But being that we're in a time of what they were speaking about, now we can clearly understand what these prophets have envisioned, because we're in that time of the ending of seeing the downfall of this system, which is all daughter of Babylon. Okay? So the bows that he's referring to and the lance is referring to the missiles. And them Russians and them nations that are in league with Russia, let me use another word, that are allied with Russia, they're gonna keep shooting the missiles, and the missiles ain't gonna miss their mark. Okay, because the Lord is gonna be with it. Remember, I just read that these are the Lord's weapons of indignation. And let's even go and read Isaiah 9. Because I was thinking about the scripture earlier. So let's even pull this out. Isaiah 9. And I think it's verse 5, right? So every battle of the warriors is confused noise, and garments rolled in blood, but this shall be with burning and fuel of fire. So the war that we're going to witness is going to be with fuel of fire. So when you look up the word fuel, now we know that the missiles is going to be fueled with fuel to propel it to go up and to do what it's got to do, right? But as well as it reads that even the people are going to be the fuel of the fire. All right. When you look up that word fuel, okay. So now let's look up that word fuel. Because remember, as it reads in the book of Isaiah 34, it mentions about the sacrifice of Basra. So the word is Ma'at Kalat, if I'm correct. Ma'at Kalat. Or Kalaf. Salaki, I was off just a little. Fuel. Now let's look up the strong definition here. Right? Excuse me. Let's look up the root. We're going to look to the root of the word. A call, which means, to eat, devour, burn, to eat human subject. Right. So it just means to eat. So the fire is going to eat up Babylon. Yeah, so the word is makalaf, something eaten by fire, i.e. fuel, which goes back to food. Okay, so the people are going to be the food for the fire. Okay, so those missiles are going to be propelled. And again, the Lord is going to sanction the judgment of America, which is also known as Babylon the Great. That's going to be the end result of everything. Okay, that's going to be pretty much America's end, and that's where all of this is going. But as it stands, just going back to what the guy was saying, this is why Russia has become the head, geopolitically, militarily as well, as it mentions in the book of Ezekiel 38.
Get it?
Where it reads that you have the prince of Meshach and Tubal, right? It mentions about the prince of Meshach and Tubal, which Meshach and Tubal are two sons going back to Japhet, right? But the term that what I'm looking at, what I'm really focusing on, let me go and read it. So yeah, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna read Ezekiel. I might as well just go and read it. Ezekiel 38. Let's go and read that. Ezekiel 38. Yeah, Ezekiel 38 and verse 2. Let's just read verse 1. And the word of the Lord came unto me, saying, Son of man, set thy face against Gog, and the land of Magog, and the chief prince of Meshech and Tubal, and prophesy against them. So the term prince just means the head, which we know that to be the case, but I'm really referring to the Hebrew word. The word would be Rasha, which means head. So Russia, as he said, at the last concerning warfare, they would be the head, because America was the head militarily in the beginning. Okay. But now Russia's become the head. Why is this? And why is Russia doing economically better? So that Russia can build on its military power. When you got a good economy, guess what? Of course you can build a lot more with that rather than a shitty economy. So again, as I'm gonna say, why is that even the case? Because the Lord is gonna use the Medes, the modern day Medes, the Gog and Gogites, to clash against America, which is also known as the another one of those land of the north. Okay. So this is all to do with the will of the Lord at large, to set up the kingdom of heaven. All right. So that's all I'm going to read right there. With that, I want to give all of the praises and the glory to the Most High and His Son, Yahweh Bashim Yahweh Shai Bashim Rakah Kwadash. And with that, I'm out. Shalom.